Hello and welcome to episode 24 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So I've, really talked about my love for From Software throughout this podcast.
Yes.
And I mean, most of their games are really hard. So it will be no surprise going into this episode that this game is also pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
What From Software games have you played? Have you played any of them?
None. Zero. I've never played a From Software. But to be fair, I've only known Dark Souls, what is that, Sekiro?
Yeah.
Those types of games, yeah. I've only known that. So when we booted up this game and the From Software logo popped up, my first thought was, oh no. I was, that scared me to see that logo pop up on the screen.
I had no idea you didn't know. That's so funny.
Yeah, going into this, I knew zero about this game. I think I've heard the title Armored Core, but I've never actually seen footage. I've never actually played one, so I really knew nothing.
What's actually interesting is last year, Armored Core 6 came out.
Oh, okay.
And I played and beat it.
Oh, wow.
To be fair, we're not going to get into the game yet, but take this game, make it modern, make the controls amazing, make it smooth and fluid. That's what this game is. So I absolutely loved it. It was like literally maybe top 5 for me last year. Like I absolutely loved it.
Interesting. So I did look up footage of the newest one that you're talking about. And I will say that the graphics, it looked phenomenal graphically and how big the worlds are. But I will save that conversation for later.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to bring it up because while it did help me a little bit, it didn't help me as much as you would think.
Yeah, I was curious about this because I knew you did play this. So I figured you had an easier time with this game than I would. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say until we actually get into the episode. Yeah,
I mean, that's fair. I definitely knew what all the terminology was. Like a lot of the themes and a lot of the way the game works is still the same now.
Oh, okay.
And the presentation, the way the game is set up, everything is still the same. It's just a very rudimentary version of what it is now. Obviously, I mean, it's the first one.
Right.
So.
Right. It's interesting too, talking about From Software, because we were talking a little bit before of when we go through the list of games to try to pick out what the next weeks are going to be. I don't know a lot of these games, so anything that sounds interesting, I'll take a look at just to see what it is. There was a time I ran into a From Software game. I'm like, okay, interesting. And I went to the next game. That was another From Software game. Completely random picks, both of them being From Software. I was like, how many games did these people make during this time period? Because I've only known them for one specific thing. So it's crazy to see how much they did in the past as well.
They have so many games, so many just one-off ideas. And obviously when it came to Demon Souls, Dark Souls is when they really blew up and became more mainstream. But so many ideas and so many unique ones. It's very interesting. And even now, you can see there's things in this game that are in Dark Souls.
Oh, really? I can't wait to get into that.
I mean, we don't really get into it because I didn't find it, but there's a sword in this game called the Moonlight Greatsword. It's not called that in this game. It's called something else. They have that in almost every single one of their games.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It is in Elden Ring still. You know what I mean?
Oh, nice. That's cool. I mean, and I always appreciate developers who kind of go in on an idea. And even if it's a one-off game, it's cool that they just go for it. Did it work? No, not really. Okay, next idea, let's go for it. And I like that. Not everything can be a home run. And it's nice when developers see that too.
Yeah, I mean, they really don't have that many series. I mean, Kingsfield went for a while. Armored Core still going. But other than that, most of their ideas were just these one-off weird games.
Mm-hmm.
And I can respect that for sure.
Exactly.
There's also, I want to say it's a gang in this game or something called Dark Soul.
Oh, okay. I didn't make it that far.
I don't know if I saw it in some of the footage I was looking at or if I actually saw it in the game, but I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've already been getting into this game, so let's just properly start talking about it now. Armored Core was released in North America on October 27th, 1997. It was developed by From Software and published by Sony, so a first-party game. It's a third-person shooter based on mechs. And obviously, I've wanted to play this game for a while anyway, but we picked it because it was requested by Zoyboy1914.
Yeah, he kind of just popped up or they popped up in the comments and said, "Hey, did you guys ever think about playing this game?" So we figured, what a good time to play it then now if someone's bringing it up.
Yeah, and just to even go off of that, anybody that wants to request a game, throw it in there. We'll add it to the list. Like as long as it's not something that we have a plan to play at certain points or whatever. Like we'll throw it in there.
Yeah, and as always, saying from the beginning, I didn't know much about this game. I always like to guess what it is based off the title. And with this title, I thought either it's going to be a tank game or it's going to be a mech game. So it was pretty spot on with that one.
Yeah, it's not that hard to figure out.
No.
Honestly. I mean, as soon as you start the game, it's literally just like someone building a mech.
Yeah. And the action sequence within the beginning cinematics were all right, I guess. It lets you know what you're in for with the game of like a fast-paced robot shooter thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I thought it was funny that they were just showing someone building a mech as the first thing you see, because that's what you'll spend most of your gameplay doing.
Yep. I mean, the graphics aren't terrible. Starting from the cinematics and going into the gameplay, not a bad thing. We've seen worse on the show so far.
No, I mean, I think this game looks high budget for the time. Like, it looks great.
Yeah. I don't think it's amazing. It's a good middle ground, a little bit to the higher end, but not the best we've seen, but definitely not the worst at all.
All right. I mean, it's no Dino Crisis or Siphon Filter, but it still looks great.
Yeah.
I want to hear your initial time with this game, because my impressions are obviously going to be tainted by the fact that I already played a game in this series.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, going into it, what you felt, because the game just throws you right in.
Yeah.
It's here's a test. Good luck.
A much easier test than Driver, I will say.
Oh, yeah.
It is. My first note that I wrote down on this is the game is immediately overwhelming. The amount of information, the amount of pieces and parts, and energy points, weight points, armor points. Then you have this these companies that are talking to you, and it's what the hell is going on with this game? I just started and you're throwing so much at me. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm going through before I even played. So I put a half hour in on the first game night, and the half hour is just specifically I'm going to get in, kind of get used to the controls, get used to the menus, all that stuff. And I'll do a full playthrough the next night just to kind of get started. That half hour I spent going through the armor pieces and looking at information, reading the manual, and trying to figure out everything about this game. And then I see in one of the menus, the information thing of bullet cost. So I'm wait, you got to pay for your bullets that you use?
Oh, yeah.
Overwhelming is the best word I could use for this.
So I got the overwhelming feeling out of the way mostly whenever I played the newer one. But at the same time, it's still extremely hard to figure anything out. By the time I played for a few hours, I felt like I had a good grasp on it, because I played about 4 hours total of this.
Okay.
And by about, hour and a half or whatever, I felt like I knew what I was doing. But I also was doing research online and looking up what kind of builds do you make? What do certain things do? And all that stuff. That is an integral part of the game. It's not like you're looking up a walkthrough. You're just looking up how to play.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a good thing if you have to dig through on how to actually play this, because a lot of this is in the manual of what these things mean and what they're supposed to do. But when you click on the information button on anything, on the arms, on the guns, the amount of detail for every component on your mech. I thought, do I need to get a notepad out and start writing down all these numbers and where I'm at because of how much there is? And it doesn't help that every single component and every single weapon is just a series of letters and numbers. So you don't even know what they are or what they do. You're oh, do I go with XR54-2 or do I go with LS-MMN.1? Two different types of guns. What are they?
Trust me, I hear you. And looking at it, the main stats that I would really look at were the armor that would add more to your total health, because all your health pool is all of the armor points, I think is what they're called, of every item that you have equipped put together. And then you have to look at the weight, obviously, because you can only have so much weight before you can't continue because you're overweight.
Yep. And if you have guns and stuff, you need a certain amount of energy to even power those things. So you're juggling all these different components about your mech and trying to find what works at all. Like the first thing I did was I went to the versus mode, which in this case is a 1v, well, a 1-player versus 2-player type thing. And I was just like, I'm going to use this just to practice shooting, get used to the controls. And they have every weapon and stuff unlocked in that menu. So I was customizing my mech. And so much time was like, okay, I want to play, but it's like, oh, you don't have enough energy points. I'm like, why? What does that mean? I don't understand.
Yeah, you have to get a better generator.
Yeah. So I went through and I just went through generators until the red number turned white. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm good. I don't know why I'm good, but I guess I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I spent most of my time, like most of my gameplay is going to be in these fucking menus going back and forth.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you're in it and you're like crafting your mech in the garage, there is an Armored Core test mode where you can just go and test your mech to make sure everything that you have is like what you want.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, in the garage at the bottom, it says AC test. And you can just go and it puts you in the section where the tutorial is. And you can just like fight those 3 little robots or whatever.
Oh, that's good to know now.
The cool thing about this game, it is clearly about customization.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you buy something, you can sell it back for full price.
Oh, is it for full price? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it incentivizes you to try out different things. So you can sell, for example, the head that you have equipped right now. Sell it, buy a new one, equip it, see how it works for you, if it's what you want. If it's not, you can sell it back for what you paid for it and just buy the old one that you had back.
I wish I knew this because I feel like I just put a handicap on myself for this entire game, not knowing that.
Yeah, I mean, it allows you to experiment and like find the right build for you. That's what makes it fun. Like,
all right, well,
that's so funny, dude.
Yeah, so I went into this thinking, because every single game is you buy a part and you can only sell it back for like half the cost. So my whole goal into this was go into a mission or go into missions, get money, and save up for something new. And I only ever bought a new gun because that's all I could ever afford. And never knew that, because looking at the prices, I'm like, how is anyone supposed to purchase any of this? Like, this is so expensive. You don't get that much money by the end of missions.
You had a really bad time, didn't you?
So you said you put about 4 hours in. I put 2 hours in, and it was the most forced 2 hours I had to put into a game. I will say, just off the top, I've realized that mech games are not my type of game. Personally, I didn't have fun, but it's just not my cup of tea, as with fighting games.
This episode is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Because I love this game.
Well, so with the newest game you've played, is it equally as confusing, or do they at least explain more about what's going on?
They explain a little bit, but at the same time, it's very much the same where you have to either go through it and figure it out yourself or, you know, look stuff up online, watch YouTube videos. And for me, that's not a problem. I actually enjoy that because like going all in on a game like that is very fun to me. Watching videos about it, looking up builds, figuring out the best way to do it from like watching other people play it. Like that to me is fun because it's like you're truly immersing yourself in this game and doing everything to make it fun for yourself, which is like what I did for this game.
I can see that. Well, we're talking about these guns and armor a lot. The biggest annoyance I had was it never gives you an equipment to equipment comparison.
Insanely annoying.
So I had to go into one gun, remember like 3 different numbers, then go to the gun I have equipped to look at those same 3 numbers. And I had to keep going back and forth between the two to see, is this gun even better? I don't know. I need to like compare the 2 guns.
Yeah, I mean, I have no rebuttal to that. It is just so much of my time was spent like I'd go back and look at it, and then I'd go back and look at the other one, or like remember like I need a weight below this so that I can make sure I don't go overweight when I'm buying this new thing. It's constantly running numbers all the time.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is. And that's where the additional overwhelming part comes. Like, I didn't want to buy something because I truly didn't know if what I was buying was better than what I already had. Like, I was basically like, for a gun, I was basing it off of I forget what it was called, the attack damage or something, or damage. I don't know. It was how much power
your
the gun
damage,
had.
yeah.
I don't know. It was very frustrating. Like you said, a lot of my time was spent comparing things and trying to figure it out. If I would have known about selling things back at full price, then I wouldn't have been so hesitant on buying stuff, or I wouldn't have cared to look at the stats. I would have just sold things off as I needed.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I did. First thing I bought was a new gun, and it's just like a better machine gun, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, better than the one you start with. It has more ammo. I sold my old gun to buy that one. And like, I bought a new generator, which I saved up a little bit of money from doing missions, then sold my old one, bought that one. And like, that's how you're able to do that, because you're obviously not making that much money from missions. But when you do, you can sell that to supplement it and then buy a new thing.
Yeah. And that makes complete sense. I wish I would have known that.
It is very interesting though. So whenever you do a mission, after you beat it, it takes off money for how much health you lost and how much ammo you used.
On top of, if you have like civilian cars on the road, if you hit a car, that takes money off. If there's things in the environment you're not supposed to touch, if you break them, you have to pay for it.
Well, that only happens sometimes, I think. Like when it's specified in the mission. I don't think it's every time.
Yeah.
All I was going to get at with that is you're never going to get what it says that you're going to get for the mission, because that stuff's always going to be taken off. So it may say you're getting $30,000 or whatever. And like, you're never going to get that because it's impossible to beat something without using ammo.
There was one mission, I don't know if you did it, where there's a factory and there was like worker robots inside that you had to get rid of.
That's true, because you have to melee them.
Yeah. So if you melee all of them, well, you don't have to. You can shoot them too. But if you melee them, that's the only mission you can do that you get 100% of your cost back.
And I love the melee, by the way. I use it the most because it's so powerful.
Yep. Me too.
But yeah, I mean, most of my time, like I said, was spent customizing things and figuring out what to use. And I ended up settling with the quad legs, which gives you 4 legs, because you can move so much faster without boosting.
It's funny you bring that up, because I looked up a YouTube video whenever I was kind of fed up on day one of playing this, and just watching someone else play, like, am I even playing this game right? I don't know. And the guy had those 4 legs too, and he was just cruising around. Like, well, that would be nice to have.
The only downside to them is like, you can't equip certain guns, and whenever you use the sword, instead of doing the swipe, you like stab straight forward. So you have to be a lot more precise with that. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's worth it just for the mobility.
And just off of that description you're saying now, it is nice that different pieces give you different stuff. Like, it affects the way your mech works.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation is going to be so weird because I played way more of it than you, and like, you really never got to the point where it was fun.
Does it actually get fun? I would assume it does.
It gets really fun. So the loop is like, you know, you're buying new parts, you're doing missions, you're upgrading, you're slowly getting better. And the mission variety is great in this game.
I would disagree with that, but I want to hear your take on why you think that.
In the beginning, all the missions feel like they're just killing everything, right?
Yes.
But as you go, they're not.
Okay.
So like, for example, the one was I had to infiltrate this place, and you can use stealth, but you don't have to. And you go in there and you have to destroy this security system. And a lot of the missions, there's like a win condition. So it's not like you have to kill everything to win. It's like the one, it was like destroy as much of this town as possible in 2 minutes.
Yep. I wanted to talk about that too.
We'll talk about that in a second. But there's a lot of different ones where it's like, you know, just go here and destroy this, or go find this, or destroy these 3 power things in this facility. And once you destroy them, you're good. You don't have to fight anything. You can go past them all, which I did sometimes.
Right.
There was one where I was in a cave fighting giant bugs. And it was like, you have to find the queen, because if you find the queen, they'll all be disoriented. So I was just zooming past all the bugs to find the queen. And like, there's certain ones where you're just doing a test against another mech for like, and you don't get any reward for doing it besides a few parts. So you lose money by doing it, but you get parts that you can sell for money.
Oh, okay.
There's just a lot of different things going on. And I like that very few missions felt the same to me after the beginning. There's even like, there's tower defense, there's, you know, escort missions. There's one where I was stuck on top of a giant aircraft carrier fighting things, and I couldn't leave it because I would die if I jumped off of it because I was in the air.
Oh.
There was just so many different things while I was playing. It's like, you never know what you're going to get next.
Interesting, because in another video I watched, the guy who had the like 4 legs and whatnot, I scrolled through the timeline of him playing and beating the entire game, And maybe it's just bad luck on my part, but every time I clicked on the timeline to go farther into the game, it looked the same. It's just destroy these people, and that's all your mission was. So maybe that's just the ones he was picking. I'm not sure.
That is actually a good point because you don't have to play every mission.
Right.
As you pick them, certain ones will go away, new ones will come in. Like there was one that I was putting off because it was called like escort this truck or something.
I think I saw that too.
I kept doing the other ones because I didn't want to do that. I'm like, those always suck in old games. And eventually it just went away.
Yep. Which I do like. I like the feature where they don't just give you missions right off the bat. Or like you don't have to do things in any order. You get to pick and choose. That's a very nice feature.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this game is like crazy. It's still, it still boils down to like you're just moving along, killing things, but there's different objectives and it's not always like kill every enemy on the screen or kill this one armored core. It's always like something unique that you have to do for that level, which may not be that big of a deal, but I appreciate that because honestly, I would play the rest of this game. I liked it that much.
Okay. Well, yeah, so the one level I did was there was like a rescue team or whatnot, or there's a team stuck in a building and you had to go down and rescue them.
Yeah.
And it's like filled with these little robots all throughout it. And at first I was killing every single robot until I ran out of ammo because every gun has limited ammo. So I did the same thing as you. I'm like, I don't think this is part of my objective. So I just like was using my boost and flying over these robots and trying to find where these people were. So I lost a lot of money unnecessarily because I was just shooting things.
So what I did was, and in typical fashion, I talk about this almost every game we play. If I lost a mission, I just reloaded the game.
That is a nice part about it. Of if you lose, you can just reload as long as you saved before.
One time early on, I forgot to save and I did like 2 missions and then I lost one. And I was like, oh, I just saved. I can reload. And I'm like, you know what? Never again.
Yep. Every single time I won a mission, I went and saved. There was a point where every single mission I had available to me to do, I couldn't get by. I couldn't get past it. So I just took the loss and I lost the money. And then I knew that was at least going to generate new missions for me. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to take it and go.
Yeah. I mean, the game is really not intended to be played that way, which is funny. You're not supposed to reload. You're just supposed to take the loss.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read about this, but it's very, very interesting. So, one, if you go into debt to 50 grand, you have to restart the game from the beginning.
Wow.
But you keep everything that you had and you get a buff permanently.
Oh, that sounds nice.
And that can happen up to 10 times. So each time you fail, you keep everything that you had and you get, I think one of them is like your boosters do, like you have more of that bar for boosting. One of them is like you do more damage. And like each time you lose, the game like throws you a bone essentially.
So it seems like it's almost necessary to you can just kill yourself off that many times, lose, just so you get those permanent buffs.
One thing I saw when I was looking on Reddit and the person was like, yeah, if you're really struggling, just like buy a Gatling gun or something with a lot of ammo and just like stand there at the beginning of every mission and just use all your ammo so you can lose all your money really quick.
That's smart. I like that idea. I did read about the whole like you can go into debt, you can be in negative, and the game stops when you get too far into debt. But it never gave me a number, so I wasn't really too sure about that.
Yeah, and like I just didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to start over because like I already felt like I was like I think my percent for the game that I had played was like 30%. So like I'm far enough that like if I would restart, I would need to come back to it at another time.
True.
Like, I couldn't just immediately play these missions again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I made 13%, 14%.
I don't know. I mean, I can understand like why you would feel the way you feel about this game because it's just so much. There's just so much going on all the time.
And I've said this from even the earlier episodes that we've done is I'm the type of person who I don't like to look up what to do. Like I like to play the game of I'm going to play this game as it's made and try to see how far I can make it. Last week we talked about, Kyle and I talked about Stardew Valley. In Stardew Valley, there's like one specific fish I needed to get to complete everything. And I didn't know how to find that fish. And I spent days upon weeks trying to find this one fish to the point where I eventually just had to look it up because I checked everything and I did everything. I tried everything in game to figure it out. And I just could not for the life of me. And that's how, like, when you're saying, like, with this game, the whole point is you can look into all these builds and stuff. Like, that's not how I would play the game. So it makes sense of why I had such a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, if you played this game at the time, I can't even imagine. Like, that would be such a struggle.
Yeah, imagine like this would be the first game you would buy where you had to buy the book, like the strategy book to go with it. I feel like this game, you wouldn't need that to even make it anywhere.
Back in the day, I actually did have a few of those, but it was mostly just because like I liked the game and I wanted it, not because I was actually going to read it.
That makes sense. I get that.
But we did skip over quite a lot.
We did, yeah.
So to go back to when you're starting, I mean, the controls in this game are not ideal.
Nope. Not one bit. The best example I had was it's kind of like the Star Wars controls, where you're trying to do this first person shooter thing. It's not first person, it's third person, but you're trying to control in 3 axes with a controller, and it just doesn't work.
So my way to get around this was I pretty much would just never aim up or down.
Never. Not one bit. You keep it dead center and that's it.
Yeah, you just jump up and try and lock on to somebody. Just do whatever you can. Because like I always felt that once I started aiming, I would get so messed up by everything that I would be like just so lost in the sauce of like what I'm doing.
We need a lost in the sauce counter for every time you use that. I love it. And I agree. There's one. Did you do the infiltrate like the oil rig mission?
Yeah, yeah.
All it is flying enemies. That's the first time I actually aimed up, and trying to aim up while using boosters to jump. I didn't know where I was looking anymore. I'm just holding the fire button. I don't know if I'm even locked on anyone, where I'm even at on the map. It was brutal.
Trying to move around at all while you're like angled up is just like disorienting.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, looking at the later games that they made after this. I kind of like how they kept that rectangle thing on screen. Like that's just a part of the games.
No, I love it. I also like pretty much never used the missiles.
I always forgot I had them.
I mean, there's ways to upgrade it, but it's just so annoying that you have to wait for it to lock on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that mission, I was running around the one warehouse or building trying to kill out these small robots. When I ran out of ammo, I tried to use the rockets. I didn't use them because it took way too long and I was already past the people by the time it even locked on. So I just kept running.
Today when I was playing, I actually bought, it's like a plasma rifle for like the back armor or like the back weapon.
Oh, nice.
And it just shoots an energy beam straight ahead. And the square is very small, but it does so much damage that it's like worth it.
Oh, cool.
I found that to be way more useful than the missiles. But I brought up the whole looking up and down thing first because I feel like that is the only aspect of this game, control-wise, that can't be fixed with upgrading your stuff.
Nope. And that made me realize, like, if this was on PC and we were playing this on PC, I would probably have a lot more fun.
Oh, it'd be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to be precise and like shoot while running and jumping while dealing with those controls is just miserable to me. And I think it's going to be this any game we have that's a first person or third person shooter, I feel like it's going to be the same problem, except for Siphon Filter.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless it's like Siphon Filter where it auto aims up or down.
Well, even this does auto aim, which also screwed me so many times where I'm in a building, there's enemies right in front of me, and I go to shoot and it auto locks to an enemy in another room behind walls. It's like, why are you auto locking to something that I can't see when there's something right in front of me?
That is annoying. I'm pretty sure you can like slightly move yourself to like lock onto someone in front of you, but I don't know if that's like a reliable thing.
Maybe. It's weird that it's so precise that it's locking onto things you can't see.
Yeah. One of my first notes here was like the controls are bad. They're very sluggish and they feel slow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yes, but if you upgrade things, then it's not like that anymore. I almost feel like that is intentional to get you to try other stuff and figure out like, how can I make this better and easier for myself?
I get it because you're in a giant robot. That at the end of the day, you're in a giant robot. It's going to be slow. Because I made a note on this too. I'd said that this is a fast-paced shooter with slow-ass robots, which that's where a lot of the frustration came from. Because even trying to turn 90 degrees takes ages to like get the full rotation and then aim on someone.
I know it's like meant to be frustrating, but like you're saying at the same time, like you're a giant fucking robot. Like you really think he's just gonna zoom around immediately?
Yeah. I understand where they're coming from with it, but if a guy was behind me or even to my side, I took so much damage because it took forever to even turn to even see them.
I would just boost away really fast and then loop around because like there's just no way I'm turning fast enough.
Yeah, I eventually did that too. But it was also watching the video of this guy playing, and from everything you're saying, it really does seem like once you can get those upgrades, things become better. I'm not saying it's like a lot easier. Maybe some things are easier, but you can at least maneuver better. You can get things killed faster. It's just getting to that point to upgrade is where it gets frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, those first few missions are really hard no matter what you do. Like, you just have to get good at it pretty much.
And the fact that they call them sorties.
Yeah.
Is like, do you want to start this sortie? I'm like, what the fuck is a sortie?
What does that mean, by the way?
It means mission. Do you want to start the mission?
Oh, I mean, I didn't know. Is that like a French word or something?
Oh, I don't know. I had to look it up. Like, I looked up Armored Core sortie. What does it mean? People were like, yeah, it just means mission.
It is French, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's from the French word meaning exit.
Weird.
I guess it's like a military thing, which makes sense.
Which I like how you can read through the mission and you can choose whether to accept it or not. And if you accept it, it says, okay, now do you want to start the mission? I like how you can choose no, and you can go back and modify your mech to what the mission calls for. What I don't like is when you go back to the mission and you have to read through the prompts all over again, even though you accepted the contract.
Yeah, I mean, most of my footage is me just going through it really fast. And honestly, like, just to get this out of the way real quick, the story in this game is just like nothing important at all.
No.
I mean, generally, it's the same thing as like the newer one where it's like there's all these corporations and you're a mercenary. You're working for all of them. And like sometimes you'll be working against one. Sometimes you'll be working against the other. Sometimes you're doing morally bad things. It's just like you're a true mercenary. And, you know, no matter what, you're just doing whatever you need to make money.
I get all the information is in the manual, but they give you no reason to even care about the story in this game. Like, unless you sat there and studied the manual, like, even after reading the manual, you don't really understand who these people are, what they're doing, what the objectives are, why they're doing the things they're doing. It's just like, oh, now go do this because of this. Oh, this person infiltrated this person and then this is happening. Why do I care? You're not giving me a reason to care about this.
Yeah, it's just all like military jargon, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well, what's interesting is the newer one is actually the same way with one important distinction. Is there's actual characters in it.
Oh, okay.
But the game is still all told through mission logs and people talking to you while you're on a mission. There are no cutscenes. There's no quote unquote real story. But as you're doing this, you're meeting characters and people that like you actually talk to. And I don't remember anything about the story of that game, minus like the ending and a little bit. But what I do remember is the characters. So if this game had a few more characters, if like, you know, there's the ranking screen that shows the best mechs. Like, if those became more actual characters and not just like a person you fight one time, then I think that would have impacted it a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with telling a story through text. Games do it all the time. It's just there needs to be something more to it to make you want to learn more about the story and want to keep going forward.
Exactly. Like, we don't know what this world is. We just know that there's these companies that are working against each other, and now you're going to go destroy this thing for one of them. And then the other one, you're going to go destroy something for them. And it's just like, yeah, all right. You know, they're giving you loose reasons to do these things that you're going to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's there if you care about it. But if you don't care about it, it doesn't matter at all.
Exactly.
Like, no one is going to be like, I'm playing Armored Core for the story.
No, I get that completely.
But yeah, I mean, I had a really fun time with this game. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, as I like started to figure out the loop, you know, like do a couple missions, figure out what I want to upgrade next, and then work towards a thing to upgrade. Now I have enough money, sell the old one, buy a new one, see if I like it, move on to the next thing, slowly making my mech better and better, making the missions easier. And I'm sure by the end, like, I did read that the final boss is apparently like insanely fucking hard, like almost unbeatable. But at the end of the day, it's just a game about shooting things and buying new gear, really.
Yeah, ultimately it comes down to this game is just about upgrading and what works best with one another and your components. But going back to the mission you were talking about with destroying a city in 2 minutes, unless I did it wrong, you can only really destroy the cars, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like shooting at the physical buildings. Like, is this doing damage? Am I doing anything? And then all of a sudden there's like, oh, here comes a new mech. Its name is Valkyrie. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to keep destroying cars. Then all of a sudden, there's this onslaught of missiles that pinned me up against the wall, and I couldn't move. The frame rate went down to like 1 frame per second. I couldn't do anything.
So the goal of that mission is to just be a gotcha moment, and you are supposed to run and hide from that mech.
Where would you even hide from?
So what I did was I jumped on the buildings, and then when it would come and fly up to me, I jumped to another one. There's also a spot near the edge of one of the streets where you can hide inside a little cubby, because you can't defeat it right now. That's like the number 2 ranking mech. So like you just have to hide and wait for the time to run out.
How would you ever know that?
I just did that on my own. I didn't look that up.
Oh.
I died a few times to it, and I was like, you know what? It said just get to the time. So what I did was I destroyed stuff, and then whenever it showed up, I went and hid, and it worked.
Weird. That was one of the missions where I died, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking that as a death, and I moved on.
My thought process was like, I obviously cannot beat this guy. I tried like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, you know what? There's just no way, because as soon as they start the missiles, I'm just done for.
Yeah.
So I did my best to run and hide as soon as they showed up, and it worked. And as soon as the timer hits, it's like mission success, and then it ends. And then you actually get a thing in like your mail where it's like, you're lucky you made it out of there alive. That thing would have destroyed you or something.
Interesting. Well, that's cool. I wish there was a little bit more explanation behind that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about a lot of these missions, where it's like there's so many ways to complete them. Like you don't have to kill everything. You don't have to kill anything sometimes. And like in a true From Software fashion, they expect you to just figure it out yourself.
Oh, so that's even in today's games, that's what they do?
I mean, in Dark Souls, they don't tell you where to go. You're just supposed to figure it out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the infamous moment in Dark Souls 1 is like when you start, there's like 3 or 4 different ways you can go. And yeah, a few of those you can do, but most of them will just destroy you, which is why I quit playing that game like twice before I figured it out.
So some positives. Did you mess around with the emblem creator?
I didn't really, but I did make my mech a cool color, so that was fun.
Yeah. With the colors and the styles, the patterns, it's really cool how much effort they put into all those little details. It's not just, oh, here's this one mech color and that's all you get.
Yeah, I mean, you can even go into like the RGB where you can specifically get an exact color for each part of your mech.
Yeah. And with the emblem creator, I mean, trying to do it on a PlayStation controller, not the easiest thing in the world, but they kind of have the options where you can do like a filled in box and you can I made like an orange robot frog thing is the best I could do, but it was interesting, and it is like, you don't really see that too often in games where, I mean, you do nowadays, but back then to make your own emblem wasn't a common thing, that from what I know.
There actually is a PlayStation mouse. I wonder if you could use that for that. That'd be cool.
Good point. I wonder could you use the PlayStation mouse with this game?
I don't think it works like that. I'm pretty sure it's like, it has to be officially supported.
Oh, that makes sense.
But no, I thought the customization is like, that's obviously one of the main reasons you play this game. From parts to colors to your emblem to anything. Like, this game lets you go as deep as you want to go.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear that you're saying that the missions get more unique after that, because I felt like they put more efforts into the detail outside of the missions, like with your mech, with the components, with the colors, that there's so much detail there that when you went into the mission, that's where everything fell apart for me. Like, it just seemed like the game was to just customize your mech, and then everything else was second.
I think if you would have got a little farther, you would have had a little more fun with it. I mean, I'm not saying, like I said before, these are not crazy unique, but it's just, there's enough variety there that I didn't feel like I was doing the exact same thing every time.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite end where like all the missions blur together for me. I couldn't tell you which one was very unique to the next one because they were all pretty much the same thing, just a different location.
Yeah, you just had to get a little bit farther.
It was a struggle. So after that first 30 minutes I put in on the day 1, day 2 I come back, I was almost done in 10 minutes. Whenever I was actually getting into missions, I was like, is this what Jimmy felt like on Invasion from Beyond? Because I am
probably
struggling to want to keep going forward. Putting in 2 hours felt like I put in 20 into this game.
I honestly would have kept playing if I didn't finish up today. I don't know. I just really like it. I think I just like that, like, heavy, like, the kind of combat where you have to be so decisive about what you're doing. And I also had a really fun time customizing my mech and finding parts and like looking up what different things do, looking up like what's the best, this kind of weapon, what is the best for this build. Like, I just enjoy that kind of thing. So like, at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy that, you're not going to like this game because there's just no way to play it otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And like I said at the top of the show, I watched a video and it was just the evolution of every Armored Core game that they made.
I've watched that video too.
It was from Hypnozilla, if anyone, at least the one I saw. Even up to 2023, like, yes, the graphics look amazing. It looks smoother gameplay. But even that, I'm like, this doesn't look fun to me. And that's when I realized, like, the mech games just aren't for me. It's just not made for my style.
I used to be like you too. And then I played Armored Core 6. I wasn't even going to get Armored Core 6. You know, it got like 8s out of 10s, which is really good, but like it wasn't as good as like the Souls games. So I'm like, whatever. A few of my buddies from work were playing it, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll just try it. You know, I typically don't buy games unless I know I'm going to like it, but you know, it's from Software, and like I've played every game they've made besides Sekiro of the newer ones. So I'm like, you know what? At the very least, I know it's going to be a well-made game. So I got it and I was just sucked into it.
Interesting.
Because specifically in the newer one, the controls are so smooth. Like you have full control over everything. So it's not like this where I do feel like sometimes you're fighting the controls.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the newer one, you're not really at all. So, you know, once you take off those variables and like a little better of a story, you know, a little more clear customization, like it shows the stats when they're changing and all that stuff.
Oh, nice.
The natural evolution of a series. And like, that's really good. And I will go back and play more of these games, not even for this show. Like, I want to play more of them in general.
I really think now with this information that you gave me, I kind of want to go back tonight and I'll try playing again with the knowledge that I can sell the parts and buy new ones. I think that will change a lot. Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, at the end of the day, you had the experience that you did, right?
Yeah.
I kind of figured something like this would happen because this game is overwhelming. I don't think I'm discounting anything you're saying. I'm just saying, like, I like it for those reasons why, and while you don't, you know?
I get that. And I'm kind of running out of all my notes, but the one thing is I finally got hit with the motion sickness on this episode.
Really?
It was the level where you had the generators and you couldn't break any of the generators and you couldn't attack. They start you in that hallway that is clear glass and the outside is spinning around as you're trying to walk forward. I almost threw up in that very short distance of trying to walk forward. So I accidentally blew up one of the robots that was too close to the generator. Didn't know that it was going to blow up all the generators. So I restarted the mission, did it again. Second time walking through that hallway, I just closed my eyes and held forward until I thought I was to the door.
So when I started the mission, I saw that and I was like, not today. And I just like looked away for a second and zoomed up to the door.
Yeah. Because even like in amusement parks where they have that you're on a bridge and the whole room is spinning around you, I almost fall off the bridge because I just can't balance and I'm like, I'm going to die in here.
Well, now that I know that like these games will make me motion sick, like since Star Wars pretty much, I've been trying to be more conscious of it because like that one really made me feel like shit and I just don't want that to happen again.
All right.
But I know it's going to happen again. There's so many games we're going to play where it's just either low frame rates or like trippy stuff like that. It's going to get me.
Yeah. Well, even like with the end of Unhander, how the entire map is spinning behind you as you're fighting. I just think people loved spinning maps in this era of gaming.
Well, you know, it's the first era of 3D gaming, so it's the spectacle of it, which is why they've tried to do stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I want to bring up is I think the music's really good. You know, there's not a lot of it, but when it is, it's really good.
Yeah. So actually in this episode, I did a new thing that I haven't done before. And I went through and just listened to the soundtrack on its own. Not playing the game, just putting on the music and listening to it while I was at work and doing all that stuff. I will say a lot of the tracks blend together and they kind of sound the same. But combined with the gameplay, it works with the aesthetic. You have these mechs and you have this techno music. It all works together.
And I also love the music when you're just in the menus. Like you hear it so many times, so it has to be good.
Yes.
But it is really good.
I will, yeah. Today, whenever I was playing a little bit more, trying to hit that 2-hour mark, I was listening to that menu music and I was like, okay, I like this song a lot. Like all the other, like, I get why the level mission music kind of all sounds the same. It needs to be upbeat. It needs to keep like fast pace. We're fighting. But the menu music, yeah, it's really, really nice.
All right. So you ready to hop into some reviews then?
Yeah.
This game got amazing reviews at the time.
Of course.
Lowest score I found was a 7 out of 10. I didn't pull anything from that, but here's a couple, you know, that I thought had interesting points. Game Revolution gave it an 8 out of 10. And they said, while the designers don't get an award for plot originality, They do deserve commendation for their attention to detail and game depth. You have the privilege of designing your AC down to the logo upon its arm. There are a staggering amount of possible combinations for an AC that seems overwhelming at first glance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try and pick like quotes that are like specifically pertaining to things I think we're going to talk about, which we've obviously talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Even sometimes I try and find something that I know that we might not talk about. That way we have to talk about it here. But obviously today we've kind of gone through this game pretty detailed.
Yeah. I will say if they did the whole like weapon comparison to one another, I think that would take away from the overwhelming nature of it. And if you at least just named the things what they needed to be named, not these random letters and numbers.
I know this is a cop-out, so just fully know what I'm about to say. I know it is, but I just feel like it adds to the immersion of it. Like, all this nonsense and all this, like, jargon, all the symbols, all the random terms you've never heard before, it really immerses you into the world of the game in a weird way. 'Cause it's not like the story matters. It's not like the environments really matter that much, but you just feel sucked in by this, like, they created this thing. This is the first game in this series. They created all these terms, all these things, and they just throw it all at you like it's a real thing, you know?
Yeah, I completely get that. And that's where I was thinking of it too, of I understand why these arms and the legs and the weapons all have these random, seemingly random names to them. Because in an engineering aspect, you would be like, oh, get me part number blah, 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 -835. It makes sense to why they did it that way, but it's not helpful for the player.
Yeah, I mean, it's not friendly at all.
No.
All right, so one of the lower reviews, All Game gave it 3.5 out of 5. And they said, this isn't a corridor game where enemies come from the front. These enemies are smart and will find their way to your backside to let loose a barrage of ammo. Suffice to say, Armored Core is tough.
I did like how they did kind of swarm on you.
If you're not on it, these things will just come at you hard.
Yep. But it was tough whenever you can't spin around fast. So every time you spin around to take out someone behind you, there's now 2 more people behind you now. And when you get those, now there's more people coming up from your backside. It's like, I can't win. I can't get away from this.
Yeah, you just got to boost out of there and hope for the best.
Yep.
All right, well, that brings us to our scores. I have a score written down, and I was going to kind of see how the conversation went, but that doesn't help me at all because we had such different experiences with this one. I am genuinely scared at what you're going to do here. So I like this game a lot. I really do. It's overwhelming. It's not friendly. It's overcomplicated for seemingly no reason, but I almost love it for that. For the same reason I love Dark Souls. You know, I love the new Armored Core. I love just games where they just throw you in and they're like, figure it out. But there is a way to figure it out. And there is a way to make it easier for yourself if you do the research, if you figure out what everything means. It's not impossible. So I guess I'm going to give this game a 7.5.
Truthfully, I did think you were going to go about a 7.5.
I didn't want to get ridiculous, you know?
Yeah, but we kind of understand each other now. Like, when I'm playing this, I'm like, he's going to give it about this. And you typically are around where I think you're going to put it.
Let me go ahead and say this then. My guess is that you're going to give this game either somewhere between a 4 and a 5.
You're very close. So my original number getting into this was about a 5 or a 5.5.
Okay, all right.
I thought, from my experiences, this is bad. Trying to even push myself to play for an hour, I was just miserable. But I do think it was unfair to give it a 5.5 because this isn't my kind of game. And it goes back to Tekken, where I don't like fighting games, but I suffered through it and I could understand why people would like it. And there obviously is a giant market for mech games. People love mech games, and I get that. And I can't hurt the score because that's not I'm not the target audience in this scenario. Because of the things we talked about, the things you brought up that I didn't know, I will disagree with you. I don't think that making a game punishing is a good thing.
That's fair.
I don't think you should handhold at all. Dino Crisis, perfect example. They don't handhold, but they don't purposely make it hard. Like, you do have to figure things out on your own, but it's not too difficult to do so as long as you just explore and you figure it out. So with all that said, and with the things you brought up, I will factor in some of my negativity into it, but I think ultimately a 6.5, I'll raise it up by 1 full point.
I think that's more than fair. Yeah. I mean, to your point, I actually think I rated Dino Crisis too low, and I've been thinking about it all week since that episode. So I will be fighting to change that at some point, which yeah, good thing to bring up now. We're talking about maybe at the end of some episodes, we'll have a little segment where we go back through if there's something we felt like we rated unfairly, or if we just feel like, now that we've figured out our scale a little better, that, maybe a game should be a little lower, should be a little higher. We're going to go back and change those, but that won't be every week. That'll just be, every once in a while.
Yeah. And like I said with this game, I think I will probably go back, play it again a little bit more tonight. And maybe this will be one of those things where after I now do the things you're telling me about, maybe my score will go up a little bit more because of that later down the road.
Exactly. I mean, there's plenty of games on this list that I would want to change around. But even to go back to your point about Tekken, I feel like we are really good about that, where like, even if we're playing a genre that we don't like, we know when a game is good and when it's not, or when it's well designed and when it's not, right?
Exactly.
So like the middle of our list, there's a lot of those 6.57s, but like that's us like saying like, this is a good game. It's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always wanted to maintain with this show is like, we're not going to talk shit on every fighting game because we don't like fighting games. Or like when we start playing sports games, like, yeah, I don't like football, so Madden sucks. And we're never going to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that puts us at a 7, which means we tie with a Chocobo Mystery Dungeon.
Do you have any arguments against putting that above Chocobo?
If we're basing it off of fun level, I would say Chocobo goes above Armored Core. For me personally.
I obviously had more fun with this than Chocobo, but I don't know. I feel like it should be above it. I really do.
Well, and it kind of is funny because obviously you ranked higher in Chocobo than with Armored Core, and I went lower than Chocobo with Armored Core. So that was why it makes sense that we're now fighting to put it above and below. I don't know. See, what my thinking is Chocobo, equal amount of you got to figure things out, equal amount of frustration. The only thing I will give to Armored Core is that there's more variety that you're telling me about.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like with Chocobo, you kind of hit a wall where you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Whereas with this, like you're upgrading, you're doing, you have different ways to spice it up. Whereas in Chocobo, there wasn't any of that.
There was with some of your add-ons you can do.
But that was also a lot of randomness to it.
That is true. That's very true. Okay. Yeah, I'll fold on that. And I think we could put Armored Core above it.
Yeah, I mean, I also wasn't going to sit here and argue about it. I don't really feel that strongly about it. It's just, I personally like this more than Chocobo, so that's what I was going to say. But hey, I mean, Armored Core cracked the top 10.
Yeah. It's also interesting with this show where, like, going into this, I knew nothing about the game. And because of that, I now found that I don't like these types of games. And maybe if I do play the later one, like you're saying, maybe I would start loving Armored Core. But like with Dino Crisis, never played a survival horror game up until Alone in the Dark. Didn't have fun with Alone in the Dark, but then Dino Crisis game, and I absolutely loved that game. So it now makes me look forward to more of the survival horror games that we play.
That is a really good point of the show. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's making me see genres and games I've never seen before. And like, oh, I actually really love this. And I've been neglecting it my entire life for no reason.
Exactly. I mean, the core of this show is that we just love video games. You know what I mean? Like, I love playing video games. So now I'm forcing myself to play these games I've never played before.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, we're finding a lot of shit that we hate. But at the same time, like, I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, a lot of the top 10 are games I've never played before until now. And I love them. And that also even happened with our old show. Like, I literally just bought a Snatcher shirt.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we did an older show called Does It Hold Up? We covered multiple systems, not just PlayStation. So if like there's older games on, even back on the Neo Geo or
Snatcher on the Sega CD,
Yeah, we covered a lot. And they're smaller bite-sized videos compared to this, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And we cover if we like them or not. But with Snatcher, yeah, that was the one where at the time I didn't really like it. But ever since we played that, I think about it a lot. And I'm like, I kind of want to go back and play that again.
Same thing with Police Knots. Like, I loved both of those games.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we get to play Police Knots for this show.
I'm excited for all that to come back again.
Same thing with Metal Gear. But before we get out of here, just got to mention that we are off next week. So another video in 2 weeks. You just got to take a week off from time to time to get caught up on some editing and all sorts of things like that.
And on top of that, a mental break.
Yeah, I mean, playing a lot of video games,
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of gaming and a lot of writing or not writing, but editing behind the scenes. Obviously, you cover all the audio side of it. I cover all the video side of it. And about every 10 weeks, we just need 1 week off to just not think about any of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.